You ever heard the phrase, love where you live? It's pretty important. You should love where you live. If you're paying for rent or paying for a mortgage payment, you should absolutely love your apartment or love your home or your condo or whatever you're living in, your yurt, whatever it is. You should be absolutely happy. That is your place of solitude, to get away from everything else in the world. It's your rest after a long day of work to come home to your peaceful home, to your peaceful abode. We decorate our homes inside and out, for the holidays because we love our places where we live. And we want them to be cozy and warm, warm feeling. But you want it to be cozy. And so last week I was talking about how I'd been gone for about 6 months, where I was in an unlivable situation, living in an apartment building in south of Nashville. And I'd reached out to a couple of my realtor friends last winter, around December, January, asking them, hey, if they know any places that are for rent. I wanted to move out of downtown Nashville. I was living in the Gulch, and I had the trains downtown. So the CSX train was literally right off my back porch. That was okay, but the building I was living in was a luxury apartment building in the Gulch, and the people had moved in over time. I don't know. It was just a bunch of drunk kids, and they turned one entire floor into an Airbnb. So you had random people knocking on your door sometime because they were at the wrong door. Anyway, so I'd moved out, or was wanting to move out, and reached out to some friends of mine. And a buddy of mine, who I thought was a buddy of mine, told me that his family runs a apartment building south of Nashville, and it was in a quiet, peaceful little town. It was like Mayberry, from the Andy Griffith Show. And I loved it because outside of the building there was restaurants, just literally around the corner. You were within walking distance of a lot of things. So it was I thought was going to be a great place. I'd only seen photos because it was like an hour and a half drive from Nashville. And I trusted my friend. He sent me some photos, and I looked at their website, and the photos did not match the place. So I went to their leasing office, signed the lease, sight unseen. I know, my fault, right? I'll do my due diligence next time, but I trusted a friend, or somebody who I thought was a friend. So I moved into this place, and the first few weeks it was okay. It was a little dated. The place was built in the early 1900s. It had been a pharmacy at one time, turned into a hotel at one time, and then refurbished and turned into luxury apartments. Well, there was, like I said in last week's video, there was nothing luxury about it. When I sat down with the people who I was leasing this from, I asked them, I said, who is your clientele? And they said, it's all business people. You'll never see anybody. They're gone from Monday through Friday, and they go home on the weekends. I guess they work at the Air Force Base or something like that nearby. But nobody fit that description. Not a single person living in that building fit that description. So that was, them defrauding me, lying to me. Be honest. That way I can make a good choice on what I want to do if you're honest. But they lied to me. They were deceptive. They told me that there was a person that lived on property that was the property or the facility manager. And it was another resident. Just another resident who lived on the second floor who had keys to and access to everybody's apartment. That didn't make me feel safe. So it was just one thing after another. And, I don't want this to be a review video about how bad this place was, but this was the worst place I'd ever lived in my life. And at 51 years old, I've lived everywhere, from Italy to California to North Carolina to Tennessee to you name it. And with all my travels with NASCAR, where I traveled 39 out of 52 weeks out of the year, I stayed in some of the nicest hotels around the country. So I had high hopes for this place. I'm paying rent, I'm paying them for service. And I think a lot of landlords forget that, because one of my neighbors, his apartment flooded from somebody's water heater upstairs. And when they were doing the demo, they found a dead rat in his ventilation system. This poor guy is breathing in the decomposing, rat. He's got to be breathing that in. The lady who lived directly above me, last December, her apartment pipe burst. And so her entire apartment flooded. and she tore up the carpet because they wouldn't come do it. It was like soaked, I guess. And she said her son came and helped her and they ripped up the carpet. But now I can hear everything she's doing upstairs. I can hear her on the phone. I can hear her TV, because there was nothing, acting as a sound, barrier or anything like that, or any kind of soundproofing that you would normally get from like the padding, and because it was just subfloor. But anyway, it was just an absolute nightmare. The place had patio furniture on the fire escapes. Fire escapes are supposed to be empty. They're a way to egress in an emergency. So if it's 2 o'clock in the middle of the night and it's dark outside and you're going to the fire escape and you go outside and you trip over furniture or a plant or something, and you take a dive off the fire escape and do a 3-story header into the pavement, just absolute insanity. It was just the worst managed place I'd ever lived in my life. And thank God I knew my rights, and thank God I had friends that were lawyers that deal in rental law, and they helped me with fill in the gaps for the things that I didn't know that they could or could not do, or who to reach out to. Because when I reached out to the apartment complex to fix things, God only knew when somebody was going to show up, and they never came from like 9 to 5. Most apartment complexes have a maintenance person that works from 9 to 5, normal business hours. You're off at work or whatever, even if you're home. They're not really bothering you. Most people are awake at those times. No, they would show up at 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. One time there was, I guess some people were having a problem with the cable in the apartment building, and a guy knocked on my door at 9:40 at night asking me if I was having Wi-Fi or cable issues. And he was not from the Wi-Fi or cable company. This was one of their employees who was their IT guy. It was just, and he had no identifying badge or anything like that. I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen this guy in my life. And he randomly shows up, no email, no phone call. Hey, we're sending somebody out there. They didn't communicate with you at all unless it was via phone call. They didn't text, they didn't email, because of course they didn't want a paper trail that led to all their shenanigans and all the stuff they were doing. So it was just the worst place I'd ever lived in my life. It was Shangri-La in reverse. It was literally a nightmare. So I just lived through that for 6 months. Thank God it was only a 6-month lease. So I struggled through, but I made it and came out on the other end. Like I talked about in last week's video, I'm better. I took 2 more months to move to Virginia, and I'm in a house, paying almost the same amount as I was for this little, I can't even, it was hell. It was the 7th circle of Dante's hell is what it was. So I'm in a much better place. But if you're living through a situation like that, reach out. There are places where you can go to. Your state has a website. I was in Tennessee. I went to tennessee.gov, and they have a whole thing just dedicated to renters' rights, what your rights are, what they are supposed to provide you with, a safe, livable, habitat. And when they're not, you can report them. If you're paying rent. I mean, if you're in Section 8 housing, that's a totally different subject. I don't know. I've never had to worry about that or deal with anything like that. But I do know at least that, with the government and Section 8 housing, they at least have to maintain the buildings or whatever to a certain standard. This place had no standards. Nobody swept the hallways. Nobody vacuumed the hallways. There was leaves and cigarette butts in the lobby. It was like a really bad flea bag motel. So I don't know, but the thing to take away from all this is, learn what I learned from, learn from me. Know that you have rights. You can fight back. You can push back. It was only because I kind of harangued these people into doing their job was it even somewhat livable, because in the month of July, we didn't have air conditioning for 12 days. And they kept pointing fingers as to whose problem it was or whose fault it was. And I didn't care, because that's a them problem, not a me problem. I pay rent. They're supposed to make things work. Even when I moved in, it was supposed to be unfurnished. I didn't know this was furnished apartments, but the mattress was one of those, the springs were coming through it. It was wrapped in like your grandmother's plastic or my Italian grandmother's plastic. The sofa was from the 1960s and smelled and looked like it. It was god awful. I had to have them remove everything. And then I bought all new furniture and filled it myself. So that's what made it livable for 6 months. And even then, I didn't sleep most nights because I was just infuriated with the situation I found myself in. All because I trusted a friend, sight unseen. I mean, like, this wasn't like a car. You drive a car and you go a few blocks and it breaks down. You can immediately take it back. There's lemon laws. This was an apartment. I signed a lease. So anyway, and like I said, because the town was so quaint and I loved the town, and like I said, there was all kinds of great restaurants. It made it somewhat livable. But when my lease was up, I was gone because nobody should have to live like that. I feel for the people that are still living there. Whoever the owner is, I hope they fire that management company, because T. Wright Properties is the name of the management company, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing, or they didn't care. I don't know if they were slumlords or just stupid or what, but these people should not be in business. I mean, I contacted the state attorney's office, I contacted the health department, I contacted the fire marshal, and that's how anything ever got resolved, because I had to go through outside sources instead of calling the property management company, whose job it is to make sure the building is being run properly. And it wasn't. It was just, they did a piss poor job. So anyway, all right, have you ever been in a situation like that? Are you going through something like that now? Tell me. I want to hear your story. Maybe I can help you out, send you some links of where to find information to get yourself out of that, to get unscrewed, if these people are screwing you. Because when you pay for something, you're a customer. That's what apartment complex forget, or any kind of landlord. They've got this tenant and landlord mentality. Well, no. It's a business. They're in the business of making money, and the way to make money is to provide a good business. And if you don't, people are going to leave bad reviews. You won't have good tenants in the future. You'll be having to rent out to the dregs of society, which half of the building, that's what it was full of, unfortunately. I just didn't feel safe. I never knew if somebody was going to break into my apartment or anything like that, because there was just some shady characters there. So just not a way to live. When you're trying to live, we're not here for that long of a time. So you want to make the best out of your life and have the least amount of stress as absolute possible. But when you're paying to have somebody stress you out, nah, you've got rights. Take care of yourself. But anyway, tell me your stories if you've got any nightmares like mine, or are you in a situation that's worse? Maybe we can steer you in the right direction. Okay? Thank you for your patience. Thanks for listening to me. If you're going through what I'm going through, I feel your pain. I sympathize and empathize. But we can get through it together, all right? I'll see you next time. Bye.